Hello everyone, welcome to Fishin, the Merfolk podcast where I'm trying to suck less at Modern and you're learning from my mistakes. My name is 0.40% of the meta, Kody Smith, and I've got my co-host as usual with me here, Matt. How you doing, Matt?
I am doing fantastic. There was a great game on over the weekend. It was Lantern, not the Patriots. Screw Tom Brady.
And we also have a special guest with us this week. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Corbin Hosler. Thank you for having me on to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have you on. You're kind of a longtime supporter of Merfolk, if I remember correctly.
I've been on the fish for a while. I started playing Magic in 2008, and I think I started playing Merfolk in about 2009. So I've been here through it all.
Awesome.
Did you start with Modern Merfolk, or
Do what?
did you start with Modern Merfolk?
No, because Modern didn't exist. I started with Legacy Merfolk.
Okay.
Back in the day. Basically, it was around the time for people who were around then when Survival of the Fittest was a card and broke Legacy in half, along with Vengevine and everything else. And that got banned, and that opened the door for Merfolk, and that's sort of when I jumped into the Legacy scene and got on the Merfolk life.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much anyone that would listen to this podcast knows that you know who you are. So, but you also host your own podcast. Is that correct?
Yeah. Thanks for the shout out there. I do Brainstorm Brewery. It's on all the usual podcast places, and we're also on YouTube with it as well. So it's Magic Finance ish to an extent. We talk ostensibly about Magic Finance, but we've been doing it about 6 years now. We're nearing episode 300, and I'd say we just have a lot more fun making fun of each other and talking about Buffalo Wild Wings and Squatty Potties and all that good stuff. And we throw some Magic Finance in there too.
Well, it is the best poop of your life. The best poop of your
That's
life.
what they say, man. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to find out.
You know what's funny is like my 2-year-old has a little stool that he uses to sit up on the toilet, and sometimes I use it to lift up my feet, and like no kidding, like I can't, like it kind of makes me want to buy one. Like I'll be walking down the aisle in Target and I'll see it and I'm just like, maybe.
Don't do it. Don't do it. As someone who has experienced it, is actually very uncomfortable.
At least wait for them to sponsor my podcast and then use my referral link.
So when I get the coupon code Brainstorm Poopery, then I can go for it.
I'll throw this news out there to the people listening to this show, because we haven't completely announced it on Brainstorm Brewery yet because it's not official. But Squatty Potty is sponsoring us. They are creating a custom URL for us to send people to buy Squatty Potties, and they are sending me a Squatty Potty. So I'm gonna find out what the hype's about.
Is the coupon code Brainstorm Poopery? Because I feel really proud about that.
Gosh, I hope so. It's probably long though. It's probably just going to be like Squatty Potty /BSB or whatever. But you know what? We're going to find out. I don't know. It started as a joke, and now it's kind of not a joke because I've actually settled on a deal with them, and they're sending us Squatty Potties and sponsoring the show. So it's I don't know. We'll see.
That is absolutely phenomenal.
What's awesome is this podcast comes out on Wednesday. So this will come out before it comes out on Brainstorm Brewery.
We are breaking news right here.
Yeah, breaking news. I don't even know if we're going to be ready to announce it on Brainstorm Brewery because I'm waiting for it to get finalized. We haven't, we've settled things, but the contract hasn't been signed. So we're waiting on that before I really want to go official with it. But we are. It's happening. So
if you want me to cut that, I can.
No, man.
No,
let's have
let it roll.
There for
All right, so
we're going to being said, I was joking. It is actually the most comfortable thing I've ever said. You should buy one.
Right?
Never have I pooped more comfortably in my life.
It was like soft serve ice cream.
Made of rainbows.
Oh gosh. All right, so we're gonna go into our first little segment here. We're gonna talk about the random Merfolk card. And Corbin, I asked you for a random number, and I forgot what number you actually gave me. But
me too.
the what did I tell you? Just lie, Kody. Just lie.
It's number BBD and or BW BWW, and the random Merfolk card this week is Gaia's Skyfolk. It's a common elf Merfolk. in that same cycle that you love, Matt, so much. It's green and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk with flying. And I don't know.
No. It's not a Merfolk with flying. It's an elf Merfolk with flying.
I said an elf Merfolk.
You said Merfolk.
Oh, well, it's an elf Merfolk. And it's a 2/2 with flying and some flavor text and some pretty awesome Therese Nielsen art.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Now, we have Merfolk Mistbinder now as a Simic 2-drop, and I don't think that Gaia's Skyfolk has any room in Modern. I don't think that it has. I don't know. Maybe Popper. It'd be a passable Popper pick for Paper Popper.
I actually have a deck that this would work in.
Let's hear it.
So, your Merfolk Tribal Momar Veer deck for EDH.
Go on.
Well, the Simic cards in Momir are fantastic because you not only get a tutor them out, but you get to draw them immediately. So you pull out all your Simic Merfolk or all your good Simic cards, your jungle barriers and things like that, and you go to town. It's not going to be a good deck, but it can be fun.
You named this card along Jungle Barrier, so I don't know if I can trust your judgment there.
Jungle Barrier draws you a card.
I don't even think I know what that is.
Jungle Barrier, it was in Iconic Masters. It's 1 green blue. It's like a 0/4 for a wall, and when it enters,
Yes,
you
it
draw
tells
a
you
card.
how much I played of Iconic Masters.
It is 1 blue, 1 green, and 2 for a 2/6.
Oh, sorry, it's a 2/6.
And when it enters
This
the
card's
battlefield,
cool. This card's sweet. I like it.
So when I first started playing EDH way back when it was actually still EDH, I had a Momir deck, and it actually just played all the Simic cards that existed back then, which weren't that many. So Jungle Barrier and this card was in it. So it kind of was a blast from the past for me.
For those of you who don't know, Mormorvig is 3 green blue for a legendary creature elf wizard from original Ravnica. It's a 2/2, and whenever you play a green creature spell, you may search your library for a creature card and reveal it. If you do, shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. And there's more text that's not flavor text, and it says, whenever you play a blue creature spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may put it in your hand. So basically, you can just loop every creature in your deck and just put them in your hand.
Exactly. And just to keep you honest, it's Dissension, not Ravnica.
Oh, well, okay. I don't know what Semp Symbols are, so... Well, I mean, I don't know. Do you think of anything, Corbin, anything that Gaia's Skyfolk could be used in?
Well, no. But I'll tell you this, what I do like about this card. Gaia's Skyfolk represents to me what Merfolk could be. Because one of the problems with the deck is that you oftentimes die to a Signal Pest or an Ornithopter or something stupid because you don't have any flying creatures. Gaia's Skyfolk represents to me the ability to push, especially now that we're into this world of green-blue Merfolk. And I understand we're leaving Ixalan, but think about what could be. They could decide to revisit this flavor at some point in the future. Maybe we get a 1 blue, 1 green, 3/3 flying Merfolk for 2. Is that possible with today's power creep? I don't know. But I'm just saying, what I like about Gaia's Skyfolk is it represents where we could go with Fish.
Was Onslaught a Dominaria set?
It's actually Apocalypse.
Apocalypse. No, I mean, but it's not on Dominaria, right? It's on Wrath.
Yep.
Yeah,
a bunch of Orthos experts
sure,
in here. Yep.
Sure.
that sounds right.
No, well, that from what I remember briefly from my my YouTube creeping, I was just curious because I didn't know if I know there's Merfolk on Dominaria, but I didn't know if there was a possibility for more blue-green Merfolk on Dominaria. It's possible.
I hope so because they really messed up by not giving us a blue-green land in Ixalan.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool to have like another manland that made a Merfolk land or something along those lines.
I think we're going to get more Merfolk in Dominaria. I don't think they're going to be Simic.
Probably not.
That would be my guess.
They really messed up in general by not putting tribal lands into Ixalan.
It would have been cool, especially with all the the EDH decks and stuff like that. You know,
Right.
like they did the full cycle of tribal, you know, EDH precons, and then a lot of those precons got cards in these, you know, in Ixalan. Even if they weren't, you know, vampires or pirates, you know, there was lots of cards that were just good for tribal decks. And
yeah, and they learned a lot of good lessons from Lorwyn Morningtide and repeated some of them, you know, like with the Forerunners and stuff like that. And they did some throwbacks, you know, they reprinted Silvergill. Like, I think they did a lot of really good things with it, but it just seemed kind of against their philosophy, right? They always talk about giving people what they expect and what they want, and it just didn't make sense to push tribes into new colors, right? Pirates are a new tribe for the most part, right? They, you know, are pushing pirates, and dinosaurs were a new tribe. And Merfolk is getting pushed into a color that, I mean, yeah, as Skyfolk proves, they've been in before, but, you know, really traditionally have not been green-blue. And, you know, they made vampires black-white, which we've never really had. And I just don't understand how you do all of that and decide to not give players support, because it also messes up trying to play tribal and standard, because it's not easy to have the mana for those decks. You can, but Unclaimed Territory is good, but it doesn't actually help you cast cards. It helps you cast creatures. And if you can't cast your counter spells out of your sideboard, or, you know, your Vraska's Contempt or whatever if you're playing vampires, or so on. It just seemed like an unnecessary exclusion from the set.
I'm going to agree with you on that. Actually, I think they missed a really big opportunity to finish off that Lorwyn cycle of lands where you reveal the creature and it comes into play on tap. If they would have done the enemy colors, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah. Neither here nor there, I suppose. And it would have been, I mean, it would have been hard for them to finish it, right? Because there were only 4 tribes, but...
And you would be repeating Merfolk again.
Right. But whatever those lands ended up looking like, the fact that there's not some sort of, you know, dual-colored land for each of the tribes, I think is a mistake. And I don't know. They could have even gone weird, right? Since they already were trying new things in this block, you know, make the dinosaur land a tri-land, make the pirate land a tri-land, and then make the vampire Merfolk lands a dual land, right? That would have been fine with an incomplete cycle, but just give people something to play their, you know, their new tribal cards that you're giving them. So, because we're not going to get the chance to see those lands again. Like, we're probably not getting blue-green lands in Dominaria. Certainly not going to get a white-black vampire land anytime soon.
No, 0 chance.
For Innistrad 3, the Electric Boogaloo, I think we'll get a white-black vampire land. Maybe.
Soren gets his groove back.
Does Innistrad exist anymore?
Yeah. The Emrakul was sealed in the moon, and that fixed all their ails, I guess. And then the Justice League flew off into Amonkhet.
Sure.
Yeah,
whatever.
I think.
AKA Rosewater can do whatever the hell he wants.
yeah, whatever, I guess.
So before we go into our main topic, we're going to have a quick ad for Magic with Zuby.
Hey everybody, Zuby here to tell you about my Magic the Gathering podcast, Magic with Zuby. Magic with Zuby is a podcast all about the Magic the Gathering card game. We talk about the latest news and events, the latest cards and decks. We bring on guests from pro players to content creators and more. Join me each week as we keep discovering why Magic the Gathering is the best card game around.
And you can find Magic with Zuby on Twitter and Instagram as @MagicWithZuby. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go into our main topic, which, you know, Matt and I thought we're going to have a finance guy on our podcast. We're going to have a guy who can look into, like we just experienced, you know, we could have some actual in-depth discussion about what decks could have used and where Merfolk is as a deck and all that fun stuff. And we're gonna make up Magic cards. So,
exactly.
So what we're doing here is we all made up 4 Merfolk cards. They don't have to be creatures, but so we're making a common, uncommon, rare, and mythic rare Merfolk card, and we're picking a format for each of those to go into. So modern, commander, legacy, and standard. And I think this will be interesting because we've all kept our answers separate from each other's. So it'll be interesting to see where we kind of overlap. And I think mine are going to be kind of more like Christmas landy, but that comes from being more of an EDH player. And Corbin obviously has more of like the legacy modern. And Matt plays Tron, so I don't know what he's going to think of. They're not going to.
I play Tron.
They're not going to print Merfolk Tron lands. They're just not going to do that.
No, actually, I'll be honest with you. I had a great time doing this. One of the things I edited mine a million times is like the mana cost is too low. I got to keep it fair. It's a common. You got to make it a real card. So I would like increase the mana cost and like bring the power level down. I'm like, no, screw that. It's my card. I can do whatever I want. Wizard screws up all the time. Treasure Cruise. So. So we'll see. I'll let you guys make fun of me and tell me that all the cards I made really suck or they're impossible to ever happen.
All right, so we're going to start with Modern, I think. I think Modern's the place to be. That's kind of where Merfolk is most known right now. I know that, like Corbin said earlier in the cast, obviously it was a deck in Vintage and Legacy prior to it being a deck in Modern, but kind of Modern is where it's seen more of its most recent success, and right now it's not super high on there. Matt, you are very excited to do this. Do you want to go first for Modern?
Absolutely. So my Modern card is actually my common card.
Oh.
Spicy. Already starting spicy. So it's called Changeling Naturalist. So it is a creature shapeshifter, 1/1, with the ability of Changeling. It has all creature types, so it is a Merfolk. And it has Sacrifice Changeling Naturalist, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So let me paint you a mind picture, because I have the argument made. So first of all, we're bringing Phil Foglio out of retirement. If any of you guys don't know who Phil Foglio is, he is my favorite Magic artist because I'm an old bastard. He did the art for Eureka and the original Master Decoy. So what we're going to have is a green male changeling, and he's going to be yawning. But he's also going to be very, very naked. And he's going to have a black lotus covering his genitals.
Well then, that sounds super printable. I don't know what you were worried about.
And then the flavor text will be, sometimes their naturalist lifestyles can corrupt even the great unnatural relics.
I did not come up with any flavor text for any of my cards.
I didn't even go that in depth.
I think my wife fell asleep at like 8 o'clock one night last week. I just had fun with it.
Oh, man.
All right, Corbin, do you want to hit us with your Modern pick? Or your Modern makeup?
Yeah, I did these by rarity here, right? And I'll start. I mean, I don't know where all of this would or wouldn't see play, but I'll start at the top because this has been on my wish list for a long time. And it's a really in-depth card here, and it's a mythic rare, and it's called Mausoleum Merfolk. And it costs 1 mana, and it's a 1/1 flyer. And then when another Merfolk comes into play, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Sacrifice it, counter target instant or sorcery spell, unless its controller pays mana equal to the power of Mausoleum Merfolk. Now, you might say that sounds really similar to a card called Mausoleum Wanderer, and you would be right.
Sure. No, that works.
That's a soapbox that I'll never get off. I'm so tilted that the worst curse catcher is now curse catcher. It's just not fair.
Yeah, and
it's not fair at all. They made a Judge's Familiar, which for those who don't know is a blue-white split card, like a hybrid card that is exactly a Merfolk, exactly a curse catcher, except that it flies. Okay, that's annoying, whatever. Then they made Mausoleum Wanderer, which is all of those things I said, except a spirit. And it is just an absurd version of Curse Catcher. And Curse Catcher is the worst Curse Catcher by far, and it's just not fair.
And I mean, we kind of have to play Curse Catcher.
We do, right? And it's very important. It's just knowing that Advanced Spirits is kind of a deck, I guess. But, it's certainly a deck that exists. But, man, the fact that Mausoleum Wanderer is so good, but it can't be utilized to its full potential because Banned Spirits is kind of lacking. And just think about how good that card would be in Merfolk. We'd have a 1-mana 2/2, and then we'd have a 1-mana card that is usually a 2/2 that also, scaled very well into the late game, and it would just be so good. Now, Mausoleum Wanderer is a rare. What makes this one mythic rare? and I didn't include the original version, but if we really want to up the power level here, besides just making a Merfolk, change instant or sorcery to non-creature spell.
Oh, yeah.
Now we can counter Liliana's with our Mausoleum Merfolk.
At Mythic Rare, I actually think that's a legit card.
I mean, they printed Mausoleum Wanderer. It clearly can be done. They just decided to hose us. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can't get what we want, and Merfolk generally doesn't get what it wants.
I may have pleaded my case directly to members of R&D. That's how tilted I am here.
All right. So
I'm sorry to those members who I have been in the ear of about this.
I could see Corbin like drunk at the counter of B-dubs sitting next
Look,
to
man, we're walking down the street, and I think we were in Montreal last year, and Andrew Brown was there, and he was a former Platinum Pro. He's now part of Play Design, and he asked me what I thought about Merfolk. Look, all bets were off.
You know what I think. So I actually picked my common was in Modern as well, just like Matt. And mine might be a little tame, but I think it would be playable. It's Marrow Tender, and it's just G, like just green. And it's a 1/2, and you tap it to untap target permanent. Now, the reason I make it a 1/2 was because one of the problems is if you get behind against Tron, or you get behind against Burn, and you can't keep creatures down, they're just going to gun down your dudes, right? So having it be a 1/2 gets it out of bolt range faster, for you to be able to untap Aether Vial and get another activation prior to a Lord dying. So you could flash in Lords in response to burn spells. And what it does is it kind of opens the door to putting Coco in blue-green Merfolk lists. Because the only thing that we have in any form as a mana dork for Merfolk is Kira's Follower, which is blue and a green, and you can't take up the 2-drop slot. Now, I mean, there's an argument that you also can't take up the 1-drop slot with the something that's like basically a mana dork, but I think it's added inclusivity of being able to untap Aether Vial or maybe untap a huge blocker. I think is good enough.
See, one thing that I like is that you spent your time actually thinking about where the deck or where the card would go in the deck, whereas I spent my time coming up with flavor text and who the artist was. So
they're equally important, really.
where my card would slot into a deck, I have no idea. I just wanted to screw over Lantern and Affinity a little bit.
Okay, so let's move on to our standard picks. Corbin, do you want to go first for standard?
Sure. This is a rare. It is a land, and it is similar to what we were talking about, right? It is a land that is some sort of it's a land. It's a blue-green land, and we can choose whatever. I assume it would have to be tied to. This is the card that we should have gotten in Ixalan. Okay, I assume it has to be tied to wherever the Merfolk live. So it's going to be like River Herald's Den or something. Okay. When it comes into play, reveal a Merfolk from your hand, or it comes in play tapped. Makes blue or green, and 2 generic mana, and then a blue and a green mana create a 1/1 hexproof Merfolk. I think this lane will be a slam dunk. There's no reason it shouldn't have been printed. You look at something like Sliver Hive, which creates any color of mana unconditionally for slivers, and has 5 mana create a guy. You look at the ally land, ally encampment, which makes any color for allies, and gets to pick up an ally for an ability for, I think, 4 mana. And there's just no reason that the land I just described, River Herald's Den, I think we'll go with that name, no reason that land shouldn't have been printed. Yeah. Would it be great in standard? I mean, it would fix the colors, that's for sure. And it would also allow you to cast your naturalizes and your spell pierces or whatever out of the sideboard. And it would help the deck grind out a little bit, and it would be perfect. I mean, the deck wants to go wide with Kumena, and it'd be just like that.
Yeah. No.
I approve.
I think it's good.
From what I'm seeing so far, Merfolk isn't cracking into standard as fast as I thought it was going to. And I think that would probably do it.
It would help. The issue with Merfolk and Standard, and I played quite a bit of it after Rivals came out, it goes wide very well, but all the other decks in the format do something broken, and Merfolk doesn't. That's essentially what it comes down to. Merfolk has a lot of great value cards. Kumina is insane, but Merfolk Branchwalker is good, Jade Light Ranger is good, Swift Warden's good if you want to go that route. You can do a lot of these different things and get a lot of value out of your cards, but at the end of the day, they're not Hazaret. They're not the Scarab God. They're not Approach of the Second Sun, and they die to Glorybringer. That's basically what it comes down to. Is every other deck just does something at its top end that is so much more powerful than anything Merfolk can do that it just doesn't work. And in fact, you have no actual removal. It sounds like
common decks that are set that's really kind of bringing it down. So we're not suffering anytime.
It is certainly possible that after rotation, because there's this other version, right? The other version where you play Mistcloaked Herald and you play River Sneak and you play some more of the Lords and you just make these unblockable guys and then maybe even play River Herald's Boon or whatever. And you can just play this really tempo-oriented version of the deck that right now does not work very well because of Fatal Push and a Braid and so on. So a lot's going to happen between now and rotation, right? We're going to have three more sets, I believe. So, we're a long way from that. But post-rotation, Merfolk might have the tools again, because what it does have going for it is that the entire deck is from Exile 1 block. And if it gets another piece or two in Dominaria, then maybe after all the Amonkhet cards leave, it'll have a shot.
Yeah, definitely. No, there's lots of good arguments to be made for that. Matt, what's your pick?
So my pick. So mine for standard is actually my uncommon, and it is going to be Vindalcan Hatching Season. So it is a tribal sorcery Merfolk. It is 1 blue and 2. Put 2 1/1 blue Merfolk tokens into play, and as buyback, reveal 2 Merfolk cards from your hand. So really what I wanted to do, and I have no idea if this, again, we go wider in standard, so it's probably not going to put the deck over the top by any means. But really, I wanted Lingering Souls for Merfolk, and that's the most fair way I can think of doing it.
Yeah, Lingering Souls I think would be pretty good for both standard and possibly modern. Just because one answer that Merfolk has against a lot of decks is just dumping a bunch of dumb dudes on the board, and that can sometimes just push it through.
And that's kind of what I was thinking, is like if you just had that one card you have in your hand, kind of like when you're playing Commander and you have Capsize and you can just constantly do it. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like, okay, well, this would allow you to never run out of gas if you play it correctly.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's fair. So I kind of stole a little bit from Magic's past with my pick for standard. I used my uncommon slot, and my pick is Tishana's Reclaimer, 1 GG for a 2/1 elf whatever, or sorry, Merfolk whatever. I'm picking the elf version of this. So when Tishana's Reclaimer enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. I just think that would be something that could have been printed to help with the Amonkhet stuff and the Kaladesh stuff that's kind of causing a lot of problems, and that could have that would have helped with God Pharaoh's Gift decks, the Marty Vehicles matchups. Like it's something that would have made or would have been good out of the sideboard to kind of help stabilize against decks that are both like Corbin said, they're faster or they're doing something better at the top end. And we would need something to deal with that, and we didn't get that. And now that Kaladesh is rolling out, that card would be pretty useless in Dominaria, I think. So
essentially, we had the same idea. Merfolk needs to be able to destroy armies.
Right. Yeah. That's basically it. Let's move on to Commander. We're kind of plugging through these, so that's great. Matt, what's your Commander pick?
So my Commander pick is the one I'm looking forward to the most. It's
can't wait to hear this flavor text.
In all fairness, there is flavor text. So, for anybody who's listened to our podcast before, they know that the red-blue Goblin Merfolk Bastard Child is my favorite Merfolk card because it makes no sense. So I thought to myself, how did that bastard come to be? Well, I created his parents. Magellan and Hemorrhoidia.
Hemorrhoidia?
Hemorrhoidia. Magellan and Hemorrhoidia.
Okay.
You would think that the female would be the hot one and the male would be the ugly one. No. We're equal opportunists here. The male is going to be super hot and the female is going to be the goblin. So it is a rare. It is
are you calling menfolk hot? Is that what is that the hot take from this?
I haven't gotten to the art yet. Hold on.
Excuse me.
So it is a legendary Merfolk goblin. It is a 2/2, and whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 Merfolk goblin token with tap, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And the flavor text is actually the opening to Romeo and Juliet, because we're gonna be fancy here. Except for I read the opening to Romeo and Juliet and it was a little dark with suicide and like them killing each other for love. So I didn't want to do that. So it is going to be 2 households, both alike in dignity, from ancient grudge break new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth fatal loins of these 2 foes, a pair star-crossed lovers join. So yeah, they just squatty potty out some of those bastard red-blue goblins. Goblin Merfolks.
I'm surprised your description didn't include like a Black Swan-esque sex scene. Like I feel like that there should be something along those lines in the art.
I have standards.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, I don't think that would be bad in Commander. Like just a Merfolk goblin that poops out Tims.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't be terrible, I guess. It'd be interesting anyway.
It's like, so the way I was looking at it it's kind of a crappier version of the Scorpion God for a cheaper mana cost and for a 2/2 creature. I'm sorry, the Locust God.
Yeah. Corbin, your commander pick.
Yeah, this is my common. And I think it's all right. It's called it's something, you just basically you do what I assume they do in R&D, which is just pull up a thesaurus and figure out what you want your card's name to be after you figure out what it does. So Gaia's Permitter is what we've got here. It's a 1/1 for 1. 1 blue, it's a 1/1. Merfolk Wizard. Pay 1 mana and sacrifice it. Untap all Merfolk you control. And that's it. That's got to do some stuff in Commander, right?
Yeah. No, actually, I can think of something I would do with that right now, because you could play Sig River Guide. You can play the Revel Arc combo and constantly just untap everything.
Yeah, I assume it. Well, yes, yeah, I guess it would work with Revel Arc, huh?
Good.
My thought was, Kumina's the new popular Merfolk commander, and that requires you to tap things. This would allow you to untap.
Yeah.
And it would also work very well with Thrasios, which is another Merfolk commander that's very popular.
Yep. No, that would. And basically, when you're building a Kumina deck, you're basically building your deck to untap as many times as you can, and you're looking to force things to tap and basically anything that assists that engine in any fashion, Paradox engine, you run people over. And I think that would be pretty...
And I don't know if making it just untap all creatures you control would be too broken, so I limited it to Merfolk, but it's more flavorful that way as well. But it seems like it would be pretty simple. Like, that seems like a reasonable line of text on a common.
Yeah. And actually, your card would go great in the deck that my card would command.
Oh, let's hear it.
Because my legendary creature for Commander it's obviously a mythic rare, is Talrand Reawakened. 1 green, white, blue for a 2/4 Merfolk Wizard. I think he's a Merfolk Wizard. The text is, Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may create a 1/1 blue Merfolk wizard token. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, tap or untap one target permanent for each Merfolk you control.
Ooh.
I think that's
sounds busted.
Well, fair, but the Merfolk tokens don't have hexproof.
Uh-huh.
They're all 1/1s, so they're easily removable. And it only counts Merfolk creatures you control. So there's ways to make it so it's not completely busted.
Yeah.
I think it's narrow enough that it's basically saying, like, look, you're playing Merfolk with this deck, and you're not really doing anything else. And I wanted a Bant. I mean, because, like, one of my first decks that I ever played was a Brewery deck. That was actually the first commander deck one of the precons that I bought. And I think Brewery would be great, but a lot of people don't like it because it's because it's not a Merfolk.
Broken.
It's broken.
It's also broken.
It's also broken. So this is kind of a way that, like, would make it, I don't know, semi-fairer, I think. All right, so we're on to our legacy cards, and I'm going to go first for this one because I think mine is super sweet.
Okay.
Have
It's called
at it.
Sig's Answer. It's my rare. It's 1 and a blue. Counter target spell unless its opponent, unless the spell's controller pays 2. But you may cast Sig's Answer without paying its mana cost if you discard a Merfolk card.
Oh.
So it's like a mix of Force Spike and Force of Will. So I think that it would be run in Legacy. I don't know to the extent.
Probably. Maybe.
I think that it's good enough that, like, because when you're Force of Willing something, you're discarding, like, Phantasmal Images or Curse Catchers, later in the game. And I mean, this does limit it to Merfolk specifically, but I don't think that it's overpowered. And because, I mean, you're giving away a threat to counter something, and so it kind of is on semi-equal footing with Force of Will, but it's limiting it to Merfolk. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, it's definitely worse than Force, which means it's probably fine. It's Legacy.
Yeah, and kind of the problem with Merfolk in Legacy right now is that it's fair.
Yeah.
And so like any of the Death and Taxes variants kind of get away with playing fair creatures by taxing your stuff. Forcing your things to come into play tapped, making things cost more. So, Chalice of the Void and stuff like that, which, I mean, obviously Merfolk plays as well. But I think that would kind of help against the less fair matchups like Reanimator and Check Pile and stuff like that really Merfolk kind of traditionally has trouble with.
I like it.
All right, who wants to go next? Pass. Corbin.
All right, I got you. This is a Legacy / Modern card, and I'm not sure if it would see play in either, but which makes it an interesting design, I think, for an uncommon. So it's a blue mana cost for a 2/2. It's called Wandering Water Trapper. When Wandering Water Trapper enters play, target land becomes an island until Wandering Water Trapper leaves play. So would that be good? I don't know. But think about it in Modern. You could you could play 12 Seas or whatever and mess up people's mana. And it would in Legacy maybe not be good enough, but it could mess up people's ports. It could mess up their mana, especially as greedy as it works alongside Wasteland pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that actually could be good for both Legacy and Modern. I mean, you want... I mean, even for a while, people were playing multiple Seas effects.
Right.
And so, like, this is a body and a Seas effect, so I could see it seeing play.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to put spells on creatures. That's how Magic works these days, so we may as well get in on it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Matt, what's your pick for Legacy?
So mine is my Legacy card because I didn't know where to put it. But it's kind of like Corbin. I think it's actually probably better in Modern, but I'm going to call it my Legacy card to cheat it in a little bit. So it is going to be called Conjurer of the Eternal Flood. It is 1 blue for a Merfolk Wizard. Oh, it's my mythic rare, by the way. So it's 1 blue for a Merfolk Wizard with Hexproof, and has tap to add a blue, and it also has all lands or islands in addition to their normal land state or whatever. But the downside is Master of the Tide does not untap during your untap phase unless you return an untapped island to your hand, and he's a 0/1. So really kind of what I was trying to do was I want Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth on a creature.
Yeah, I honestly think that this would be really good for Modern, like you said. It helps against Liliana the Veil. You know, when they force you to discard, you can kind of just go and have an island in hand just to discard. So that's always good because you don't want to discard a threat. But yeah, I could see that being good, you know, for fixing in Legacy, but that also kind of gives pretty much any opponent playing any type of blue, I think, too much of a heads up.
I was kind of thinking of it as a sideboard card against like mono red sneak attack or the lands decks and things like that. The decks that don't play blue. That's where my mind was going on this one. To make your island walk actually mean something.
Yeah, and Corbin's pick was similar in that, you know, that it forces island walk, which is what we want. But I think in Legacy there's too many decks that are playing blue.
No, Corbin's card was much better. I wish I would have gone first. I'm looking like, God damn it, Corbin had the card that I wanted to make, but I couldn't think of.
I've had these in my head for a long time.
Well, I'm glad we're giving you the opportunity.
Design. You say design the Merfolk cards you want, man. I, for years, had these floating around. I did have to make a commander card, but.
Well, I mean, you do play commander, but like commander's not your highlight. So
yeah, I mean, whatever. Commander's commander. I enjoy playing commander, but it's, you know, I'm not sitting around just thinking about what cards I want for commander. Like I'm thinking about what cards I want in my Merfolk deck.
So well, I mean, in commander, it's like you just go out and have fun. You don't care if you win or lose. I mean, I literally just bought Rashadan Pawn Shop because I'm like, it sounds awesome, and I want it in commander. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I'm gonna put it in there somewhere.
No, I have to read what that card does.
But I mean, but you're right. But in Modern and Legacy, I want to be competitive, and part of the reason why I've never gotten into Merfolk is that, I mean, there's just so many blank spots where you need an answer and you just don't have it, and it drives me nuts.
So Corbin, not unlike Squatty Potty, I'm glad we're able to help get that out of you.
Yes, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So before we get going, I do want to remind our listeners, or let our listeners know, because I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. We're on Patreon. Yeah, for that Patreon.
Hey.
That Patreon money. We have one patron. And
thank you, guy.
Yeah. No. And he.
The best part is my wife is immediately like, "When do you get your cut?" And I'm like, "Well, Kody does like all the work, so maybe I get 1/10. So it's like I get a dime eventually, I think."
I mean, yeah. So I don't think anyone would want to hear me talk to myself about Merfolk. So I'm glad that you're here, definitely. So we're on Patreon at Fishcast MTG, or you can search Fishin, a Merfolk podcast. This helps kind of pay for server costs, upgrading microphones and doing all that stuff when we get there. Also, I have some goals to, I want to do like Legacy stuff, but it turns out cards are expensive for Legacy, and I can't just shell out, a couple $100 to play Legacy on Moto. So
my wife wants a new refrigerator.
Corbin could probably help you out with that, actually.
I did that once upon a time, actually.
We'll talk off air. We'll talk
100 fetch lands. That's what I accumulated 100 blue fetch lands back in the day, because I got into Magic runs into Car, and I heard everyone talk about how they wish they hadn't got rid of their dual lands and their fetch lands when they were in Standard, and I was like, this is Standard, these are fetch lands, maybe I'll do this. And then they created Modern, and I was like, whoop, $25 for Scalding Tarns, better sell them now. So good. So, won and lost a little on that one.
Well, I sold Kody my what are they, the white green
Horizon Canopy.
Horizon Canopy for like what 25 right before it spiked to 60s.
I think I sold mine for like 60 or 70. But I do want to shout out our first patron, Keith Perez. I tweeted out a little story, and he was actually, I tried to make a podcast in 2012, a retro gaming podcast, and he was my guest host or my co-host on that show, and it went nowhere for so many reasons. And I was basically only listening to gaming podcasts at the time. But Keith, thank you so much for sponsoring our show. I'll do something. We'll figure something out to do to celebrate you as our first patron. And Corbin, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about fanciful merfolks and comfortable dumps. And where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, thanks, man. So you can find me, as we said, my podcast is Brainstorm Brewery, but I'm also on Twitter at Hosler88. I'm on TCG Player. I do all the editing for TCG Player, and I have videos, mining modern videos up every Monday on TCG Player's YouTube channel, as well as some other standard and popper content from time to time. I do event coverage for Wizards of the Coast, so you can catch me, being the guy on a laptop in the background of the Pro Tour. So that's where you can find me. But
always wearing shorts, t-shirts, and flip-flops. Like,
man, I wish that is my life. But on the PT, I have to dress up. It's scary.
And you're also coming up here on the Modern Super League. Is that correct? The Team Modern
That's
Super
true.
League?
Yeah, that's right. Modern Super League starts, I guess this comes out Wednesday, so we'll have started last night for everyone. But my team plays next week. It's me, Saffron Olive, and Todd Stevens. We are the Brew Crew trying to take on all the pros here in the Super League. So we're having some fun with it. We're thinking about ways to include the audience in some of the decisions we make regarding the league. Because it's really cool. It's a team format where each team picks 6 decks, you bring them in, and then your opponents can ban one of the decks, and then you play the other 5. And that's how it works. So it's actually really neat. It's a completely new format to try out for Magic, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, me, Seth, and Todd are going to give it a go and see if we can take down the pros.
Yeah, and we'll retweet links and stuff when we see them put out. I'm sure you're gonna tweet those out and put them on Reddit and Facebook and all that. So we'll make sure to share all that stuff to increase the verbosity of those.
Spoilers: I will be playing Merfolk.
Oh snap!
So, unless it gets banned.
Yeah. Yes. So if we can dodge the ban hammer next week, Merfolk will be played.
Somebody's gonna come out and just hate ban you.
I doubt. I seriously doubt that Merfolk, the 0.40% of the meta that had 0% day 2 at the Pro Tour, is going to get anything banned out of it. If anything, they'll ban Cavern of Souls because of humans, but I don't think that would happen either.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. But also, they could ban the deck. They could say, we don't want to play against Corbin playing Merfolk because, in the Super League, your opponent's going to ban one of your guys' decks. But we'll see.
So can we assume that between you and Seth, there's just going to be one random modern legal common that's just going to spike 1,000%?
It's certainly possible. We're toying around with some ideas to, like I said, include some listener feedback in terms of the decks we select. So there might be some jank. I won't lie.
I appreciate you guys because I love bulk commons, and I just pick up as much bulk common as I can because I have the space for it at my house. And you guys make so much money.
Well, good. I'm glad. It's nuts. It was really crazy watching the PT last week and seeing, in this top 8, there are multiple decks that I played on Mining Modern where I try to find fringe decks. And when I first played 5-color humans, it was the week after the deck first debuted. It was super fringe. And then it just became the most played deck of the PT. And I played the Black Red Hollow one deck after a 5-0 to League. And now the deck's just top 8ing Pro Tours. And it's like, this is what's really cool about Modern is that you think, look, you can play Grixis Death Shadow, but you can also just play Hollow ones. There's a lot going on with it. It's really cool to see some of the rogue or fringe decks sort of, rise up and become top tier.
Well, that's great.
It's a fantastic format right now.
It'll cycle back around for Merfolk.
Yeah, and I actually was discussing this. We'll close with this. I was discussing on the Merfolk subreddit, which I know that you're on, Corbin. That's rFishMTG. I think it's the subreddit. Yeah. No, there were people, like, is Merfolk worth playing because of humans and all that? And the thing about Merfolk is, and the professor from Tolarian Community College says this all the time, Merfolk as a deck ebbs and flows. And right now it might be under the water, but we'll collect as a shoal. And we'll come back up as a mighty master of waves to crush our Affinity and Tron enemies. And just watch out, you robots, and lanterns and bridges. We'll figure out some way to get past you.
And you thought I was going to be the only one quoting Shakespeare tonight.
Right.
I doubt that's Shakespeare.
I'm pretty sure that's Shakespeare.
Maybe some nugget in my head. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as @FishcastMTG. On Twitter, I'm @NotCodySmith. Matt?
I'm @MatthewCaudill8. By the way, thank you for my one new follower this week. We're almost more real followers than Russian porn bots. We're almost there, guys.
And thank you everybody for talking to us on Twitter. We're actually almost at 100 followers on Twitter, which is pretty great. I mean, considering that we've existed for a month. And Channel Fireball retweeted a bunch of our stuff over the Pro Tour weekend, so thanks to them. I don't think anyone from Channel Fireball is listening, but thank you, Channel Fireball.
Not just leave the podcast.
Yeah, we made it 5 episodes deep, and everyone's fallen off. If you have a long-form question, feel free to email us at fishcastmtg@gmail.com. Our cover art was made by Tessa and Hunter Pruitt. And if you like what we're doing here, please rate and subscribe us in whatever app store you find us in. That really does help. And again, find us on Patreon at FishcastMTG on Patreon. Thank you very much again, Corbin, for coming on. We appreciate you making up cards and just spending time on your favorite Merfolk podcast.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you next week. That was fun.
Sweet, that was great.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was great. Make sure to let me know when it goes live.